You want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we're at the Dine Alone Records sort of warehouse space, head office thing. And there's this room here that is kind of doubles as a practice space. It's a bit of a home gym. You can have little gigs in here as well. But really for us, it was it was like a safe haven from this unknown thing that was going on. It was a place for us to write all these songs, you know? It was, it's funny being in here like this, talking about this record now, because we haven't really been in here since then. And, you know, I said this long time ago, when Wade called everybody to jam, you know, when he said, I'm coming into Toronto, does anybody want to jam? And we were like, well, where? You know? And somebody said, maybe we can do it at Joel's, at Dine Alone. But when he did that, I don't think that any of us realized, but it was like Wade was starting the band over. Like when he called, or when I called him 20 years ago to ask him if he could put my band on some shows, and then he said he was gonna have a band practice with Steele and Jesse, and you know, that started everything. And that phone call asking us if we wanted to jam, basically because none of us had anything to do, you know, we were living it was very locked down, right?
I think we'd gone through like, and at this point, like we're already like probably a year deep into the pandemic, lockdowns, everything. And we're starting to, one of the main problems with Alexisonfire a lot of the times is the fact that it's hard to get us all in the same room at the same time. There's a lot of conflicting schedules. There's a lot of people doing a lot of different things. Well, here, you know, the silver lining of the pandemic is now we have all this time and we're close to home. And a year goes by of us not doing that. Yeah. And then it's just like, it starts sitting here that we're wasting a bit of an opportunity, I think. It starts, you know, you feel like as though we're wasting some sort of, I don't know, we're supposed to kind of come together. So yeah, Wade being like, let's find a place to rehearse. This was just an obvious choice. We didn't have a rehearsal space at the time, and we were lucky enough that Joel was willing to accommodate us. So, you know, PCR up the nose, everybody comes to practice.
I think not only that, sorry, Steele.
Yeah.
I think not only that, like, were we able to practice, and it was about the only normal thing at that time I was doing that felt like life during the pandemic. So, you know, it was obviously just like great to be around some other people and to play music. But aside from that, like, aside from being able to have band practice, because of what was going on and because everything was so simple in all of our lives, we were having band practice like we were having band practice when we started the band. Like, we didn't have to like find a few hours, rehearse, and someone had to take off. We like showed up, fucked around for a while, played some songs, ordered a pizza, then watched Escape from New York, and then casually made our way home. Yeah. And that hasn't happened for a bit.
Yeah, basically we recreated your mom's basement.
Exactly.
In
Joel's basement.
In Joel's basement. Yes.
I think prior to finding ourselves in this room, we had a bit of time that, you know, when we wrote and recorded those 3 singles, we did it in northern Toronto. But during that time, there was a lot of old ideas that were just kind of shelved from even back when we were actually touring in 2009. Just old guitar riffs that were kind of sitting there dusty, that we were starting to take shape a little bit. And so there was a lot of parts and ideas that were sort of there, you know, and it made sense to release the 3 singles we did, but there were some ideas that were sitting there. And, you know, like we said, a year went by and we weren't together, but those ideas were there. And I think collectively with all of us, we had this ambition to do something with it and try to work on it.
Do you feel like, I'll pose this question to you guys as well, but the way I feel was, we had so many weird little ideas from so many different places. Like, you know, there's that stuff that when you and Wade came down to visit me in Nashville in like 2017, and we goofed around. We had enough of these little bits and pieces, but we started writing songs so quickly when we started jamming, just like taking these old little bits. And it was like, because I don't know what it was, whether we were all just completely focused on the idea of trying to write a song because it was something that wasn't what was going on outside. you know. But it was, to me, it was the speed with which we put the first few tunes together. Like I think Con maybe was, because I had that weird voice note of that, and I think we might have had a little bit of a version of this song from jamming it when we were writing those other three. But to me, that was what it was when, after the first few practices, and the songs just kept, like, they were together really quick, like the first 4 or 5, I think, you know?
Yeah.
And then I think to follow that, the real moment for me was when I showed you guys Mistaken Information to me, and you guys were like, oh, like, I was apprehensive. I didn't know what you guys would think, but the fact that you guys loved that song and thought we could do a version, and then that was like, okay, now that's never happened, you know? And that's, to me, that opened up a whole new world for me with the songs, and it just snowballed from there. Like we kind of shaped it in 2 parts, you know. Prior to Christmas, we kind of had 4 that we were happy with, and we demoed them across the street. Yeah. And then took a break and came back. And during that time, you had a few in the hat and World Stops that were more or less completely written. I remember we were all hanging out up north, and you showed us World Stops, and right away it just felt like that song you've always known. It just had that sound to it, and we didn't really reconstruct them either. We just played them like us. We played them like us, and there's comfort in that, you know, because being a band for 20 years, you can have years or months off, but when we get back in the same room, there's that familiarity of, you know, things just meshing together. And I think we're a little less, I don't know, maybe less analytical.
I think it has something to do with the fact too that we're not a very functional. We haven't been a very functional band for a long time, and so we're not in the midst of like, okay, we finished our record, time to get on the road to do the touring. Now we've got we're back from tour, we got to write another record. Like, there's none of that. Yeah. It's just like, all right, are we gonna make a record? Yeah. And we can just kind of approach it kind of without any of that other stuff around it. I think before, if we took time, people would forget, or they wouldn't care, or another band would step into the place that we'd built or something like that. And that didn't happen. If anything, like, people became more nostalgic for it. They wanted to hear it more. And I think we have that kind of nice feeling around creating, where there's no real pressure involved with it. We can just do whatever the hell we want. We were creating just because we could. Yeah.
We also shed a lot of ideas, and like old ideas.
Yeah.
You know, there was a point when we used to write where we go, like, if something was put forward, we go, well, we can't do that. Yeah. And we can't do that because of this set of our concept of maybe who we were as a band, our concept of what we could do as musicians, just these kind of rules we had created for ourselves. You know, that sounds a little bit too much like this. That's a little too outside. And we really, that didn't come up at any point in any of the writing. Like, we shed all of that. Mm-hmm. You know, if anything, the things that we would have not allowed ourselves to do, we went even further.
Yeah, we leaned into those things.
So, you know, like Dallas, you know, when he showed us World Stops Turning when Steele mentioned it up north, and it was this like big epic rock song. When we started playing it, you know, there was the bones of it there, but we started playing, we're like, well, let's make it like standing on the edge of a cliff, like wearing, like, I'm gonna do my leather pant guitar solo, finally, forever. No one's gonna stop me, and if anything, you guys all encouraged it. Yeah. And that type of attitude bled into everything we did.
It permeated through every song. It was like this, we'd never been more supportive for one another. And, you know, all the, like, even that, for instance, like that song, when I started writing that song, I wrote it as a quiet acoustic song, you know? And I remember thinking, fuck, I know there's an Alexis version of this song, you know? And then that's when I put that demo together. But the lead guitar riff, the thing that Wade's talking about, like, I wrote that, and I knew it was a cool fucking lead guitar part, and I was like, I'm gonna give that to Wade. That would never have happened in the past, you know? We were kids, we wanted our parts to be our parts, you know? So there was none of that. So that was, there was all, like Wade said, there was all these things that we had released when we started starting to realize we were making a record, And it was the agreement. It was the agreement.
Yeah. There's something we felt like, well, I have to keep harping on it.
I don't even know what that means.
You do, if I bring it up, if I remind you, you will. Remember I was telling you guys about I was watching that jazz video and the guy with the bass player was talking about what it's like to be in the pocket with somebody.
Yeah.
And he says, it's you enter into an agreement that you guys are going to play in this, right? Yeah. And I feel like every time when, like, the best moments of my life have been on stage when we find that agreement where we're all playing as one and the crowd is feeling it as one. And it's like the romantic, magical shit about being in a band.
Yeah.
But it's an agreement. You all feel this one simultaneous boost of energy, but we took that idea of what happens when we play live and we made the entire record like that,
That's very beautiful, and I don't immediately want to say something stupid, but I'm going to.
Okay.
When you said the agreement, what immediately popped into my head is there's an episode of Seinfeld where George keeps killing pigeons. I'm spitting. He keeps running over pigeons, and they're like, we have an agreement. They get out of the way when we're driving, and they could shit on statues.
That's
so
what
you said the nice
agreement.
moment, Wade.
Yeah.
You ruined the nice moment.
That's what I meant.
You ruined it.
20 years ruining the nice moment.
Yeah.
Next question. When we started making this stuff, I think I had no idea what it was going to be. I think best case scenario, when we started rehearsing, I thought, wouldn't it be incredible if we made a record? But I had no idea what that would have sounded like.
Yeah.
And it started to happen. It started to happen quickly. And we were doing a very, very good job of, as Dallas mentioned earlier, just like being supportive and being kind to one another and really communicating. And that allowed us to push the songs and the writing in a different place and do things very differently. Things like Chris writing lyrics for the first time. Something like myself writing something very, very personal and having Dallas or George take those words and sing it, which is something we wouldn't have done in the past. Bringing new instrumentation to the record. Everything that was new, there was a tons of stuff that we tried that we'd never done before, and we got there by really communicating and talking it through, and especially the vocals. Dal's idea of finding a way to make it even like we've certainly found a way for the three of our voices to work together, but we had this idea that there's a new way for the three of us to sing together constantly. And that's something he talked about conceptually, and we tried to find our way towards that.
And it was all gradually discussed, it wasn't like we wrote a song and then we were all like, okay, here's what we're going to be supportive. It was just like every practice was a little bit more fun, and that also allowed it to be, the inspiration was just flowing because we were coming here in the middle of this shit. And then, in Toronto, where it was closed, and it was in the winter, and it was like, we would come in here, and it was like the best part of your week was getting to come in here and just jam, and with no preconceived notion of what it would be. But every time we did, and we wrote another song, it was like something else would be discussed, and what if we try this? And then I think after we made those first 4 demos across the street, that's when it was like, okay, it's on. I told you guys that night. Remember, I was like, we've started recording the record.
Yeah.
Everybody was like,
we
what?
almost just said the
Everybody
demo.
was like, these are the demos. I was like, no, we've started. I freaked everybody out.
Yeah.
But what I meant was we had started making the record. Like, we were in pre-production. We went over there just to demo them, but I'd never heard us sound that way when it came through the speakers after we just lugged a couple of combo amps across the street and just demo, like live off the floor, demoed these songs we'd just written here. I couldn't believe it. We had sounded like a completely different band. Not that we weren't us. We sounded like everything we've lived for 20 years. You know what I mean? And that's what, for me, I was like, And then it was just like, that's when I showed you guys Mistaken, and then we friggin' wrote Dark Night of the Soul somehow out of that other song. Remember? That came from Steel wanting to revisit that weird
Kind of Sabbath thing?
Yeah, and then it was just, just like shit like that was happening every time we jammed.
There was at some point a wave of confidence hit us. We felt like what we were doing was right, and then I think so much back in the day, I think there was a lot of second guessing and saying, oh, we can't do that or this, I don't feel comfortable doing that. And I think like we just like at some point there was just this no, what we're doing is right. This is absolutely, let's follow this through. Let's see it through. I remember when we were like, and this was a moment when we were recording Complicit. And we were kind of struggling, kind of a slog of a day in the studio, and we're kind of struggling with the song. And Wade stopped, and he was just like, "Does anyone think this is good?" And there was a beat, and that was all we needed to hear. And it sucked the air out of the room, and we were just like, "Okay, let's go home. Let's start over and think about this in the morning." That nothing even close to that happened throughout all of the recording of Otherness and the writing of it. There was just this like, there was no real like guesswork or, oh, I don't think I really did that properly, or I don't know if this is where this is going in the right way. There was this realm of confidence that we were all living in that when we were making the record. And I feel, I still kind of feel that way about it today. I'm not sure. I'll be saying this now. This will be the clip, and then like we'll get roasted in the media.
Well, we'll get roasted anyway. That's just what happens.
I mean, if you're to look at differences between our experience with Otherness and 2009, I'd firstly like to say it's always weird when Wade refers to me as Chris.
Yes.
Whenever I hear that, it's very weird.
It is. Who is that? Yeah, when he said that, I was like, Chris.
Whoa.
Who?
Chris Lorak, is it?
Would you prefer I referred to you by your rarely heard middle name, Raymond?
That sounds nice.
That does sound.
Raymond.
That sounds nice.
So anyways,
got some
Big
headlines.
Ray shows up. He's got riffs. He's got lyrics. He's dressed like Indiana Jones, not when he's running from the boulder, but at the university.
I was thinking more like David Koresh, like Branch Davidian's, like cult,
Yeah.
like Steele's got a sex cult going.
Don't you think it's crazy when you watch cult stuff?
You probably don't need. Just leave with that. Leave with you guys.
Like I watch cult stuff and I'm so interested by it because
Cult stuff.
because I can't get anybody to do anything I want.
It's true.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's like someone getting branded with some of the initials, like, the guy at the coffee shop's being rude to me and I'm paying for a coffee and tipping him well. That's my life. That's my cult.
Oh, but talking about Big Ray showing up, for real, like, not to dig deep into it, but in 2009, like, we're busy, we're on the road, it's nonstop, we're touring, we're trying to write for a record in a month, and, get caught up with personal things, and I'm not, physically or mentally really there, and to have this opportunity 11 years later and, like, feel more transparent, and, like, show up and be part of it. And just be like very clear-headed for the process and more engaged and just surrendering to like an opportunity, being less in my head and analytical about things and just letting it happen kind of thing. And I think we were able to do that in literally the week that we spent recording the whole record. So it's pretty magical.
Yeah.
Well, like we were kind of like talking about different ways and places that and with whom we could record this record with, and doing it this way during a winter storm in the middle of a lockdown, it felt like being on tour in the best of ways. We were all under one roof. We didn't really go outside. We were focused. We weren't commuting to and from. We were just like connected and engaged, like we were on the tour bus or something like that. It just felt, I don't know, like the best.
That was so much part of why the record is the way it is too. Like we were able to have, like, I've never experienced anything like that.
I like that you lost your voice.
I lost my voice.
You lost your voice because it was just
I was talking all day
because talking all day. We're just so stoked. He was like
13 hour. It was 13-hour days just of non-stop creative explosion. That's all it was, and like basically by the end of the week, I had been talking and laughing and probably crying, knowing me, so much that I'd lost my voice just from speaking, not even from singing. So I had to go back a couple of days later and do my vocals. But it was the ability to just literally live inside the record.
Yeah,
you know,
we did something different too that we've never done before. Usually, like, you record a record, the drummer records all the drums, then the bass player comes in, records all the bass for all the songs, and then like that. With this, we did the first 4 songs, I think, where we recorded the whole song. Everybody did all their parts, including vocals. So we completed the song before we rolled on to the next one.
Yeah.
So you have a complete song that you're listening to. You're excited about the way it sounds, and you take all that excitement and roll it into the next. Whereas before, it would have been like, okay, we're listening to the drum tracks for 3 days, and then we listen to the bass tracks for 3 days, and it's not like you're not hearing the product yet until it gets kind of closer to the end of it. Whereas now it's like every single day we go in there, we'd complete a full song, and we would like just take all the enthusiasm from that song and put it into the next one.
Sort of trying to keep everybody's interest peaked too, right? Like, you know, like George said, you can get really bogged down just sort of waiting to do your thing. That's why it's hard to make records like where you're all there all the time. So by doing it that way, it's like everybody was always sort of up, you know, like even if you had to wait 2 more hours to do your stuff, you're still kind of part of the session still, you know, like when Beardo was doing his drums, like, you know, he'd be playing, you'd do like 4 takes of the song to get his take, but we'd be playing with him every time, you know? Because there was a few times where, remember, Wade and I forget what songs it was, but we were getting to this point where we were like, we're just gonna fuck around during stealing, you know, and we did 2 takes where like me and Wade weren't really playing, and then it was like Beard and Steel weren't really playing that well, and it was like, oh, me and Wade playing the song with them is like, it's making the take come alive. So even though we're not really going for our parts yet, us being there, it's like it's getting everybody else jazzed on it, you know. Yeah. George cheerleading from the control room
and the muffaletta sandwich.
You know?
Nobody writes or records records that way anymore, which is a shame, I think.
Yeah,
it's something really beautiful. I remember specifically doing Mistaken Information, and we were like 4 or 5 takes into it, and I think we all knew it was the one because all of us were pretty much crying.
Yeah.
I remember Wade was really crying, and I started to get welled up, and I was like, that was it. Like, this was something, something unbelievably beautiful about these last few takes and this whole experience. And I think for me, it was doing the record the way we did it, live off the floor and all, you know, in our little bubble, was the most fun and most emotional way I've ever had a record come to life. Like it was. We've done that before with Old Crows where we've all lived together, but there was something, you know, the pandemic shutting everything down with our careers, but yet showing us that we can get together, and this is the light at the end of the tunnel of after being in lockdowns for a year and a half, and this record coming out of thin air almost, and then the beauty of being together. I really hadn't seen that many people or been in the room with that many people for over a year and a half.
Yeah.
And then, you know, going through these songs and how beautiful they are, and the way it was all coming together was very special.
Well, and to collectively, as a band, produce the record, we haven't done that. I mean, outside of Alexis, everyone's spent a lot of time in the studio and, you know, has gained some experience with that and engineering and having an ear for it. But to collectively, you know, at the end of the take or the day, it's our call, you know, and it was, you know, I remember it was late at night, Dallas was singing lyrics to Blue Spade, lyrics that I had written, and yeah, I was definitely having a moment because I've never taken a position in which I could have some like input if that was good or not kind of thing. And I was sitting at the console and like the lights were down, and he sang it perfectly, and I just loved telling him that like you could do it again. Like, that was pretty good, but like let's hear another one kind of thing. And it was like so amazing, and I was crying, and it was like that's the take. But
I remember that night. Perfect. Let's do one more.
I'm gonna come in there and just sit on a stool right 6 inches from your face. If you don't mind just doing that one more time.
Yeah, but that's like, think about that moment, Steele. Like I'm singing these words that you wrote. You know, you're allowing me to be the custodian of those words, and I know what they're about. but then you're there, you know, coaching me.
Yeah,
that's
and
beautiful.
just in a single moment, sort of like a 20-year flashback of kind of everything, and just like this like sphere of all of it, right? Just in that single moment kind of thing. It's like, yeah, very powerful.
When we were recording Mistaken Information, George was doing his vocals and I was in the other room playing guitars in like Studio B. And then Dal texted me, "You've got to get over here, something crazy is happening."
Yeah.
And then I come in and George is singing in this way he's never sang before, in this like moody, low baritone.
Sure. Yeah. That's what I was going to say for you.
I wasn't trying to be funny, I was just...
I know. It was good. It was very good.
Yeah, but just like this vibe that he's never tried before, that he's never done before, and it's like blowing all of our minds, and it fits in that song so beautifully. And then George walks out of the studio, and I was like, "What is that? Like, what is that?" And then George says, "I've always been able to do that. I've just been waiting 20 years to show you."
I've just been hiding it.
Yeah, I just pretended.
No, those moments, Georgie singing, those are some of the highlights for me. Those like him doing Blue Spade and Mistaken Information was like, yeah, it was like, you know.
I told this earlier in my solo thing, but like, yeah, the being in recording Blue Spade, because no one was in the studio at the time. It was just me and Jill, I think.
Yeah.
And I was like, and she was just looping it, and I was singing it. And then I think you came in, Wade, and you were just like, "Oh, what the fuck is what? Yeah, no, that's what we're doing now."
Yeah.
Because before then, all the demos of that song were all like me screaming those parts, and it was. And there is times where, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I still feel strongly about using screaming vocals on the record, and I think it is an important tool to have. There are times where I felt like we've shoehorned it in for the purposes of me being involved, and sometimes it benefits the song and sometimes it doesn't. And now it was like this relief that like, here I have something that I can contribute to a song when beyond just being the shirt ripping, screamy, crazy, you know, frontman thing. And that was a big, I don't know, some sort of relief.
Well, I remember me, you, and Wader went outside. Remember after you did Blue Spade, and you told us that for the first time, really, that you were like, "I'm really glad that worked out, because I sometimes feel like I've held us back or said something like the shoehorn thing."
Yeah.
And I think I mean, if you ask any of us, none of us would ever say that, because like I've watched this man stand in front of a crowd of 20,000 people and just stare at them until they go insane. Well, nothing's even happening, and George just stares at them, and then conjures them to move like as one.
Insane.
And I mean, I could never do anything like that. But it was him saying that in this moment allowed me to realize, fuck, George, there's this whole other side of you and your identity and whatever. Because when you're in a band and people start to know who you are, it fucks you up. And I can say that very much so, after, you know, because it's.
Yeah, we can all say Dal's fucked up.
Yeah.
He's fucking,
you know. No, but I am, and I realize it, you know. Wade really reminded me last year when I was like talking about meeting somebody at a festival, and I was like, he's kind of weird, and I was like, but I guess meeting me at a festival might be weird. And Wade was like, "You're a huge weirdo." He was like, "Imagine meeting you at a festival. You probably," and I was like, "Yeah, you're right." Okay. But you know, it was I obviously him singing was this beautiful moment for us. I was already like beyond stoked about it, but then to hear him say that and to understand that it was sort of giving you something else, not just like you were contributing something beautiful to the song. But that moment was also like it was something for you as well.
Yeah,
you know?
I just like, I don't know, maybe I felt like I could do that, but I was very scared to do it for a long time.
Yeah.
And then to do it was, again, just like a relief.
I love, like, I think, you know, it was odd for us to hear you say that, because, you know, I think we would look at your, you know, creative contributions to the band as, you know, something that we love, and I love heavy music, as we all do, and like I like screaming in music.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm glad that, you know, that certainly had that feeling for you, where you felt like, you know, maybe there was something different to wedge into songs that, like, it felt like it didn't need that. But I think for me, when that happened, and that's not something I was waiting for it to happen, but when you started singing like that, I really felt like there's nothing we can't do. There's nothing the band can't do at this point. And I don't mean from a career standpoint.
No,
I mean creatively.
Just creatively.
I mean
yeah.
creatively, we've shed everything, and there's it's such an exciting place to arrive at. I really felt like there's nothing we can't do at that point. So I think you pushing yourself to sing like that, that's how it made me feel.
Yeah.
Everybody brought something new to the table. Everybody that was there had a new tool that they could use, and so as much as I don't want to take full credit for there being some sort of awakening with regards to what we could or couldn't do, everybody stepped up. Wade, I think you working as just a songwriter, and your work on film scores and stuff like that, your approach to the studio was different than it has ever been on any other record. Steele, as a songwriter, and a lyricist, that is an incredible couple of hats to be wearing. Dal, I think, really presented himself as a producer. He was championed everything we were doing, and it was very, very much the driving force. I found you were a very real. I'd never seen you kind of like that before. You're just very engaged, very into what was going on with everything involved. And Beard, you just cut your teeth on probably a very, very difficult record to make with Billy Talent, where that's a long, strenuous process, and you brought all that into your drumming, and just in a way I don't know, everybody had a little something new to give to everything. And it was awesome. It was cool. It was a lot of fun.
It was fun. I think you'd have to stop us from talking each time we get a question, because I can give you so many other moments where I just was what the fuck is happening in here? And I feel thank you for saying that, George. I appreciate it, but I think the reason I was like that because I was just so jazzed. Yeah. I was so inspired by what everybody was doing, and I was interested, and I wanted everybody to feel that way because I was so happy to be there. I really was, and I think I just felt really good about what was happening. Mm-hmm. I did.
When we were finished, when we were driving home, after what was the best experience I think I've ever had in the studio, I think we can all say that. Mm-hmm. I genuinely felt like we'd done something important for ourselves and for the music we've made. And I hope that it resonates with people like that, because it resonates with us personally like that. And we've always just forgotten about the outside world when we're just the five of us are playing together and written records like that. And I've never been so proud of anything we've ever done, and I hope people fuck with it.
Yeah, I think the concept of Otherness, if it means something to the legacy of the band, it's that Otherness is, to me, it's just about we were weirdos, we were strange, we were interesting people, we were punks, we were whatever, and we were always drawn to something that was different, and it became the kind of mission statement of the band. It made me that the song "Sweet Dreams of Otherness," all the lyrics of that. For me, it's about performance, and it's about being who we are, and how we've always kind of had proclivities for things that were, not necessarily normal, and never feeling normal in most of the, most scenarios that we're in. But embracing it and just being we are a bunch of fucking weird individuals, and that's fine. That's totally okay.
I remember driving with all that stuff. I remember driving home from the studio with Maddie, and I said, "What do you think?" And he was like, "Just 5 maniacs." And then he was like, "No, wait, there's 4 maniacs. Beard's pretty normal." But he was like, "But Beard has to be normal because the other 4 of you're insane." And I was like, that pretty much describes it, I think.
Yeah.
You know what, Georgia? You said something good around. We watched that video in the studio of when we first played on Much.
Oh yeah.
And if you watch that, it's like you can't believe that they let us play that.
I can't believe they let us do that on like nationally syndicated television. Like it's just like you're just like what? Like we're like just a bunch of wiry teenagers playing the song lightning fast, like just way fast. It does, like, is that even a song? But then I think I was describing it, I was like watching it, I was like, yeah, well, you know, some kid in the fucking Yukon saw that on Much Music and was like, yeah, that's who I am now. Yeah. That's who I am now. Like, you know, like I would have done that. I remember having those moments when I was watching, you know, like TV as a young kid, impressionable kid, and then like, you know, they played Ace of Spades on the fucking Young Ones at like midnight on YTV, and you know, it was like that. I was like, yeah, that's about what I'm looking for. Or like,
exactly.
Or like, yeah, or even something stupid is like, yeah, like no. All that stuff. Like, yeah.
I love like, how you said. I think it's about embracing it. It's you know, that's what it's about, embracing that otherness and understanding that it's okay to be weird.
Oh yeah.
You know?
And to me it feels like a natural sort of continuum of what we've always done. I mean, with our first record, you know, that of course was the beginning that gave us this sound at that time that was maybe a little like different. And we didn't really know what we were doing, and but that did a lot for us. And then with some touring experience, then came Watch Out. And Watch Out almost bridged the gap to Crisis, which I think at that time and what was happening really defined us. Like we found our mold, or what we thought that was. And then with being more, you know, road worn with Old Crows, it felt like, to me, a little bit more of a struggle of getting that record together. Like, I don't know, the departure from Crisis and still having some elements of Crisis, or trying to figure out who we are. At that time, we've toured with a hell of a lot more bands, and it seemed like another bridge in the gap kind of scenario, in which brought us to here. And like when you called Wade and said, like, you know, it's almost starting the band again, I think that's kind of where we're at. This is, I feel like a strong statement in our career as to where we're at.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Just final question before we go to eat. What is everyone's favorite type of chicken wing?
Gotta go with the lemon pepper, I think.
Lemon pepper.
Lemmy Peps.
Yeah.
Lemmy Peps.
You already knew the answer to that.
Dedicated.
Although, you know, just a classic buffalo, since a bunch of us are Niagara boys.
Anybody got an air fryer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.